Hello there, and a very warm welcome to you. My name is Bernadette Farrell, and I've put this video together to show you how to get a good night's sleep. I'll start by showing you how to switch off at bedtime. Next, we'll be shown how to get to sleep without trying or putting in effort. After that, I'll show you how natural sleep happens. Then we'll take a look at what gets in the way of you getting a good, natural night's sleep. How does this sound? Is this what you need? If it is, then let's get started. In my experience, people find it hard to go to sleep because they can't switch off at bedtime. They lead busy, often hectic lives that trigger high levels of activity in the parts of their brain involved in thinking, organising, planning and reasoning. Then they go to bed, and with their brain still highly active and their thoughts racing, they try to go to sleep. However, getting to sleep requires a drop in brain activity, from fast wave gamma activity to slow wave alpha activity. But their brain is too active to allow sleep to happen. Quite often, it's stuck in gamma. There's far too much going on. So instead of being able to switch off and drift into a peaceful and pleasant night's sleep, they're wide awake and not at all inclined towards sleep. Does this sound like you? If it does, then you'll be interested in research which shows that an important part of falling asleep involves the letting go of thoughts and worries about the stresses and strains of the day. In other words, in order for sleep to happen, you need to let go of your thoughts and any worries that you've collected over the course of the day. One way to do this is to get them out of your head and onto the page. Think of the page as a holding space or a docking area for your thoughts and worries. You're downloading your thoughts and worries from your head onto the page. You can take them up again in the morning, but for now, you're leaving them on the page. It's a good idea to do this early in the evening, so that your mind is cleared of troubling thoughts and worries ahead of your bedtime. Jill wrote 6 pages of thoughts following a very stressful day at work. She couldn't believe the difference it made when she went to bed. She didn't wake up until her alarm went off the following morning. She said it was the best night's sleep she'd had in ages. And remember, practice makes automatic. The more you practice putting your thoughts and worries aside before bedtime, the more automatic the process will become for you. Do you ever find yourself awake at night, thinking about the day ahead and stressing about all of the things that you have to get through the following day? If you do, then you'll be interested in the findings from recent research. This research shows that making a to-do list for the following day will help you to fall asleep faster and will also help you to stay asleep longer. Being prepared for the day ahead by making a to-do list will also help reduce your levels of anxiety and stress. Another behaviour that keeps some people awake is trying to make themselves sleep. If you're one of those people, then learning how to get to sleep without trying may be just what you need to send you off to sleep. If you have a habit of trying to make yourself sleep, then you need to break the habit. You need to do this because trying to make yourself sleep doesn't work. The reason that trying to make yourself sleep doesn't work is because trying triggers activity in the thinking parts of your brain. Activity in these parts keeps you awake. The following is the type of thinking that I'm talking about here. Does it sound familiar to you? I need to get to sleep. I've got to get up early in the morning. I have to try and relax. If I lie on my side, that might help. It's not working. I'm still awake. Oh, look at the time. What am I going to do if I can't get to sleep at all? And on it goes. As you can see, trying to make yourself sleep keeps activity going in the conscious parts of your brain, when what you need is to reduce activity in these parts so that you can slip peacefully into sleep. As well as that, because thoughts about sleeping are often stressful and fear-based, trying to make sleep happen can also trigger an increase in levels of cortisol, your stress hormone, and adrenaline, your fight or flight hormone, making your heart beat faster, your breathing speed up, and your muscles tense, making you feel even more wide awake and alert. The truth is, you don't need to try to make yourself sleep. Like other creatures on the planet, you're programmed for sleep. You were born with a sleep activation system that's been designed to send you off to sleep. When you get into bed at night and you're lying in the dark, melatonin, nature's sleep medication, increases in your system. As melatonin levels rise, the stay awake drive that's been keeping you alert all day starts to weaken. As it weakens and winds down, the pressure to sleep that's been building over the day takes over and sends you off to sleep. It can take a little time for melatonin to build to the point where you're ready to drop off to sleep. You need to allow this time and this process to take place unhindered. You need to accept it and to go with it. You need to stop interfering with this natural process by engaging in thoughts and strategies to try to make sleep happen. You may be great at making things happen in other areas of your life, but when it comes to sleep, you need to butt out and let nature do what it does best. You need to trust the process. It doesn't need input from you. Acceptance is key. Acceptance may be hard for you. Going with being awake may be difficult, but this is what you need to do. It might be helpful for you to think of wakefulness as a river and to see acceptance as flowing with the natural course and direction of the river, rather than opposing and pushing against it. Pushing against the natural flow will cause turbulence and distress. Going with it will allow you to flow gently towards a peaceful and restful night's sleep. Sometimes people try to make themselves go to sleep because they believe that if they can't make sleep happen, then they won't be able to do their job the following day. Do you have a belief that if you can't make yourself sleep, then you won't be able to do your job the following day? If you do, then you might like to take a listen to the following podcast. But before we get to that, I have 2 questions for you. Did you sleep well last night? How did you get on today in work? Were you able to do your job? Kate, tell me about the worries that you have about not being able to sleep.
I worry that if I don't get a good night's sleep, then I won't be able to do my job.
Did you sleep well last night?
No, not at all.
I'm just wondering, how did you get on today in work? Were you able to do your job?
Yes, well, I got through my work okay. I was tired and I didn't feel great, but I got through it.
So Kate, what's that telling you?
I suppose it's telling me that I can function, that I can do my job even when I'm tired.
Have you ever had a late night? Maybe you were at a party and you had to go to work the next day, or you had to get up during the night because one of your children was sick or needed attention.
Yes, lots of times.
How did you get on at work the following day?
Yeah, okay, I was able to get through my work.
Again, Kate, what's this telling you?
I suppose it's telling me that I can get through the day, that I can do my work even when I'm tired.
Is this something that you need to tell yourself when you're trying to make yourself go to sleep at night?
Yes, I suppose it is. I can say to myself, I can cope, I can get through my work even when I'm tired.
When you do this, it'll take away the worry and anxiety that you have about not being able to sleep. You are saying to yourself, I'm awake and it's okay. And because you're okay with being awake, you'll be able to stop trying to make yourself go to sleep. And when you stop trying to make yourself sleep, you'll be far more likely to simply drift off to sleep. In other words, you'll be creating the conditions in which your natural ability to sleep can happen. Next, I'm going to show you a technique that creates the mental space that will allow you to fall asleep naturally. Then I'm going to explain to you why this technique works. But before I get to that, I'd like you to try the technique for yourself. It's called the Noticing Sounds technique, and it's very simple to do. I suggest that you listen to the instructions for the technique first, and then pause the video while you do the technique. If it's safe for you right now, and you've got a couple of minutes to spare, get comfortable in the seat that you're sitting on. Close your eyes and begin to notice the sounds that are around you. Start by taking a few moments to notice the sounds that are closest to you. Then move on to noticing the more distant sounds. Now you might like to go back to noticing the sounds that are nearest to you. And then again to noticing the more distant sounds. Continue with noticing sounds in this way for a few minutes. When you've completed the exercise, I have a question for you. What were you thinking while you were noticing sounds? When I ask people this question, they usually say, "Oh, I wasn't thinking at all while I was noticing sounds." Noticing sounds has somehow allowed them to stop thinking. This technique allows you to move away from thinking, and as you leave your thoughts behind and engage your brain in noticing sounds, your mind gets bored and slips away from consciousness into sleep. Why this technique works? It's very simple. This technique works because we can't think and listen at the same time. Thinking keeps activity going in the parts of our brains involved in thought processing. Noticing sounds engages the listening parts of our brains, and as we listen, activity in the thinking parts drops. creating the conditions that allows natural sleep to take place. You can use the noticing sounds technique at any time during the night. If you have a habit of waking in the middle of the night, or a habit of waking early, you can use the technique to create the mental space that allows natural sleep to happen. Like any new skill, the technique improves with practice. Anytime you have a couple of minutes to spare during the day, maybe on the bus or the train to work, take a few moments to quiet the chatter in your head by noticing the sounds that are around you. If you feel bored doing the noticing sounds technique, this is good. Rather than resisting the boredom, you need to go with it. You need to surrender to the feeling of boredom. Your conscious mind is bored. This means that there's nothing for it to latch onto, nothing to keep it active, nothing to keep it interested. By surrendering to boredom, you're creating the conditions in which natural sleep can take place. Suzanne uses sounds from an electric fan to send her off to sleep at night. Alex uses air conditioner sounds to send him off to sleep. This is Richard. He uses the noticing sounds technique when he has to take early morning or late night flights through different time zones. Engaging his brain in noticing the sounds that surround him means that Richard is usually fast asleep before the plane takes off from the runway. As you do the noticing sounds technique, it's very important that you're not using the exercise to try to make yourself sleep, because, as you've already seen, trying to make yourself sleep doesn't work. In fact, it does the opposite. Trying to make sleep happen keeps you awake. When you do the exercise, you need to do it with no expectation of where it will lead you. You're noticing sounds, full stop. If your mind wanders to thinking about anything else, you need to bring it back to noticing sounds. Caffeine is a stimulant that can make us feel wide awake and alert. Will the sleep promoting techniques that I've described in this video, will these techniques work if you've been ingesting caffeine all day, up to and including the time before you go to bed? There's been a lot of research done on the effects of caffeine on sleep, and what this research shows is that caffeine affects sleep in 3 ways. It delays the onset of sleep, it shortens overall sleep time, and it reduces the quality or depth of your sleep so that you wake up more often during the night. Adenosine is a chemical produced in your brain that makes you feel sleepy. As you go through the day, adenosine increases in your system and brings about an urge to sleep that doesn't go away until you've had some sleep. In order for adenosine to work as an agent of sleep, it needs to attach to specific receptors in your brain, adenosine receptors. But if you're a caffeine drinker, caffeine will actually go in and bind to the receptors so that adenosine can't attach in the way that it needs to. If it can't attach to the receptors, then adenosine can't do the job that it's been designed to do, which is to make you feel drowsy and ready for sleep. Research shows that caffeine stays in your system anywhere between 4 and 7 hours. If you want to get a good night's sleep, then the experts recommend that you cut down your caffeine intake by having your last cup of the day several hours before bedtime. One of the best ways to reduce your overall caffeine intake is to do it gradually, so that you make withdrawal symptoms as mild and as painless as possible. And remember, caffeine comes in many different guises. It's not just in coffee, but also in tea, chocolate, and often in very large quantities in your favourite energy drink. Now let's take a look at the effect that having a nap can have on your sleep. You wake up here at your usual time, at say 7 o'clock in the morning. The pressure to sleep starts to build. It starts to build from the time you wake up and continues to build over the day until you reach the point where you feel an overwhelming urge to sleep. At this point here, at say 11 o'clock at night. As you've already seen, the pressure to sleep is due to the build-up of the sleep-promoting substance adenosine. As you go through the day, adenosine increases in your system and brings about an urge to sleep that doesn't go away until you've had some sleep. But today you decide to take a nap. You're feeling tired, you fall asleep on the sofa or in front of the TV. Now let's take a look at what happens to your sleep drive as you nap. As you nap, your sleep drive starts to drop. You can see it here. It had been building and now it's dropping. If the nap is long enough and deep enough, then the likelihood is that the pressure to sleep will drop back to 0. By the time it builds back up to the point where you feel the urge to sleep, it'll be well past your bedtime. This is the time that you normally go to bed, at say 11 o'clock. This is the time that you'd be ready for sleep if your sleep drive had been allowed to build in the usual way. But tonight you're wide awake, and the reason that you're wide awake is because the pressure to sleep that had been building over the day has been short-circuited by your nap. If you go to bed at this point, it's very likely that you'll find yourself wide awake and not at all ready for sleep. If you feel tired and sluggish and in need of a nap, the experts recommend that you keep the nap to 20 minutes or less. You'll need to set a timer to make sure that you don't sleep for longer. Most sleep experts recommend napping no later than 2 o'clock. Taking a nap later in the day can interfere with your ability to fall asleep at bedtime. A short nap taken early will have the effect of rejuvenating you without interfering with the build-up of your sleep drive and your urge to sleep at bedtime. Now let's take a look at what happens to your sleep when you have a lie on. You haven't been sleeping well and you decide to make up for lost sleep by staying on in bed on say Saturday or Sunday morning. Instead of waking up here at your usual time of say 7 o'clock in the morning, your wake time is deferred by a couple of hours and starts here at this point a couple of hours later. Because your wake time has started later, the starting point for the build-up of pressure to sleep will also have started later, which means that instead of feeling pressure to sleep at this point here, at say 11 o'clock, your usual bedtime, you won't feel any pressure to sleep until this point here. As a consequence, you find that that your bedtime and your urge to sleep time are out of sync. In other words, you find yourself in bed at your usual time at say 11 o'clock, wide awake and not feeling any pressure or urge to sleep. When you work on your laptop late at night, the light from your laptop keeps you awake because it's sending the wrong signal to your brain. It's saying it's daytime, it's time to be awake. As humans, we have a built-in timing mechanism or clock that tells us when it's time for sleep and when it's time to wake up. Because we need to work during daylight hours and sleep when it's dark, our internal clock is regulated or set by the light and darkness in our environment. Light wakes us up and keeps us awake. When it's dark, our brains release the hormone melatonin, and as you've already seen, melatonin makes you feel drowsy and ready for sleep. But the bright light from your laptop interferes with the release of melatonin. In fact, the research in this area shows that in the presence of visible light like that from your laptop, melatonin production is shut down. If you want to get a good night's sleep, then the experts recommend that you avoid the bright light that comes from your laptop, your tablet, your smartphone and other devices 2 hours before your bedtime. What's recommended instead is low-level lighting that will stimulate melatonin so that by the time you get into bed, you'll be feeling drowsy and ready for a good night's sleep. When you work on your laptop late at night, or spend time texting or tweeting into the small hours, do you find it easy to get to sleep? When you do these kinds of activities late at night, what you're doing is this. You're keeping the conscious, thinking parts of your brain active, when what you need to get to sleep is a drop in activity in these parts. And if what you're doing is in any way stressful, then it's likely that there'll be an increase in your levels of cortisol, which will make it even harder for you to get to sleep. To get a good night's sleep, instead of doing activities that keeps your mind active, you need to do things that will help you wind down before bedtime.